Welcome to Precision Metalforming Association's presentation of the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. I am your host, Dean Phillips, and I, of course, have with me today one of my all-time greatest guests. I have with me Doug Johnson from Marion Manufacturing, and of course, he happens to also be the chairman of the Precision Metalforming Association. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Dean. It's a pleasure to be here. I think we've been trying to pull this off for quite a long time. So finally, I guess the quietest time of the year between Christmas and New Year's is the magic time for us. So thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know your schedule is crazy because you're pulling double duty, not only with your company, but also with PMA. So thank you so much for squeezing this in.
Perfect.
So tell me right off the bat, what is your big takeaway for the next 5 years? What things do you see coming on the horizon?
Well, I think, the biggest change I see is the switch over to electric vehicles, and how that's going to affect manufacturing. And will it happen in the time frame that they say it's going to happen? I think there's a lot of changes that are taking place along that line, especially along with PMA and Precision Metalforming Association and our members, and my company also. But I do see that, for us, as we fight the lack of employees and the lack of skilled workers, that, automation and technology is going to play a huge role in where we go in the next 5 years and beyond that, because we've started to move in that direction here at Marion and looking at cobots and, what can we do to not necessarily eliminate a position, but fill a position that might be coming along during our growth. So that's kind of one of the things that we're looking at. And where do we play in the EV market right now? Where we do not do a lot of automotive, but we're doing mostly medical. So, and again, there's a lot of change in the medical field too, with new medical devices that are coming out and home testing. I saw on the news the other day where you can do your ECG with a little handheld unit now and detect a lot of the arrhythmias and other problems of the heart. So there's a lot of new technology, and I think that's going to play a major role in the Precision Metalforming Association membership.
Yeah, and that's terrific. I think that sometimes people get fearful of technology, but I think you have to look at it as, how is it improving my life? And I can tell you this, if I look back to when I was in high school, and the biggest thing that was coming along then was the computers and personal computers, more on something that anybody could have access to. Computers were already around, but they weren't available to most people. But if you look at it, that was the big thing then, and I think this is way more impactful than that even, which is incredible to say that this is more impactful than a computer, because computers have completely changed our lives. But this has so many different tentacles moving out there in the world that with smart manufacturing and technology, there's a lot of different areas that are going to impact manufacturing. I agree. So tell us a little bit. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, we've looked at, some of the technology. When I sit in a meeting now and I look at what's available to my young staff, just on their telephone alone, the technologies that's there and how they utilize that. We were talking about cell phone policies within the company. My average age of my staff is 32. They grew up with a cell phone in their hand, and to ask them to put it in a locker and not have it available to them, it's just a non-starter here. So, we've kind of taken a different look at that and saying, all right, let's embrace this technology to the highest level. If somebody's looking at their cell phone, a lot of times you walk out, they're watching videos on how to do something, or videos on how did someone machine this particular part if they're in our tool room or something. So it has changed our lives tremendously, and it will continue to impact them going forward.
Yeah, and I think along those same lines, your staff, by having freedom to use technology, feels that it's a place they want to work.
Yeah, it is definitely plays a part in us being able to hire young people and, retain them here. And, because we're not the largest company in the area, that's for sure. We're fairly small. So, to find someone and hang on to them, because there's always somebody bigger in the background trying to lure your talent away. And, we spend a lot of time training people, and trying to hang on to them is an important part of that. And technology plays into that when we're training, or even using Metalform EDU. We have a policy here now where if someone has downtime, then we want them on Metalform EDU taking a class, not out sweeping the floor like it would have been 10 years ago. Oh, go clean up somewhere.
Right.
Well, the place is clean. Let's learn. Let's use some technology and learn something new and cross train. And that's been a big tool for us. And, I think that's another avenue for utilizing technology from a training standpoint and education standpoint. It's a lot easier now.
Yeah. More accessible too, I think.
Yes, true.
So tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to be involved in the Precision Metalforming Association, and your background at Marion, and how you got involved in manufacturing.
Okay. Well, it just I kind of fell into it. I grew up in North Carolina. My family had been in the furniture industry for 5, 6 generations, probably up to 9 generations now. Thomasville Furniture in Thomasville, North Carolina, well known. And that's where you kind of thought you would end up working. And my dad came to me when I was 18 years old and said, "Son, this is not going to be here for you. The industry's changing, and it's just probably not going to be able to raise a family on it like I have and all of the generations behind you. You need to look for something else." Well, I had 3 older brothers who were already in the industry. So I got an opportunity to take off to Massachusetts and go to work for a startup company. And we weren't doing stamping. We were doing injection molding. And there were 6 of us in the company at the time when I got there. And it was plating silver on plastic for ECG electrodes. What you see today is our modern electrode that's used to monitor the heart. Mm-hmm. And we were a startup company and going from making them out of solid silver into plating plastic. And I was fortunate that we got a very good president they hired when we went public. And he was stepping down from being a president of Foster Grant when they had 4,500 employees making sunglasses to come and run a company that's got 6 employees, 7 counting him. But he was a great mentor to me. And he asked me one day, I was probably 21 or 22 years old. He said to me, "What do you want to do here at the company, and what's your goal?" And being a smart-ass young man, I looked at him and said, "I want your job. That's the job I'm working for. I want to be the president of the company." And he chuckled just like you probably just did too, and said, "I tell you what, I'll help you get as close as you possibly can, but you got to continue to work hard and do this, do anything that I ask you to do." So for the next 13 years, I did every department in the company. We went from 6 employees to 80 employees. We went from $1 million in sales to $40 million in sales. And I went back to school. He sent me to college. I went to WPI School of Industrial Management. And when I graduated, I was already the vice president and shortly became the president of the company. And, I look back on his mentorship, and it's played a big role in my life and how I treat my people, because you're always looking for that person you can help get to the next level. And, I could never repay him for that. And during that time, as I grew in that industry, one of the mating parts, of course, is a metal connector. So I had a lot of connections in the stamping world. And as I took on the role of president, I quickly found out I just did not like it. It just wasn't for me. I think I was a little bit too young. I was 35 and probably in over my head. And I decided to move while I was still young enough to change careers. And I ended up going to work for a metal stamping company, but not to run their metal stamping company. I went to work for them to do a startup company, a medical device company that was starting up. And as I was running the medical device company, I was watching the stamping company that was in the same building location as us, and just felt like it wasn't being managed properly, and asked the owner one day if I could run both companies. And of course, he was fine with that because it wasn't going to cost him any additional money. Great, you can please run it for me. So I took on the role of both, and that was kind of my foray into metal stamping. I ran that business for about 11 years, and when it got sold, kind of got sold out from under me because I was the highest paid employee. And, most times when you're up in that level of management, there's someone else at the company that's buying you, that's doing your job. Right. So, of course, I got let go. But at the same time, I got a phone call from Marion Manufacturing. And we had become a customer of theirs because this was in 2009 and 10 when the auto industry had crashed, and Marion Manufacturing was 85-90% automotive, and we were all medical where I was at. We were growing and had farmed some business out here, and I had made some relationships with some people at Marion, and lo and behold, the day after I got told I was not going to have a job with the new company, I got a phone call from Marion saying, hey, if you're interested in it, you don't go to the new company, we'd love for you to come and take a look at our company and possibly come run Marion Manufacturing for us. Which I looked up and said, thank you, God. That was a miracle that happened to me within 24 hours. But so I came down and met with the owners and really liked them as a husband and wife. They were in their early 60s, did not have family in the business, and did not have an exit strategy. And they needed one. And I knew that coming in. It was. I had a little bit of a head start on anybody I was competing for with the position because I was in and out of here all the time as a customer, and I saw all the good and bad. And so I negotiated a deal that, hey, if I can get you guys turned around, I want to buy it. And they agreed to it. And I came to work here in 2010, bought it in 2015, and my son came to work for me shortly thereafter, and my daughter came to work for us last year, and it's been a lot of fun. As I mentioned earlier, our young workforce, when we started, when I came to work here, our average age was 62. Now it's 32. So it's been a big transition, but it was one that had to happen. We had 4 65-year-old tool makers back then, and now we have a 40-year-old, a 60-year-old, and a bunch of 20-year-old tool makers and several pre-apprentices. And so, but during that time, I had ran into Bernie Roselli from Stewart EFI. Bernie was a competitor of mine when I was in my 20s, and I had always kept his name on my desktop. I wanted to meet him someday because we competed for the same business, although he was making one half and I was making the other. And when I finally got to meet Bernie after I came to work here, he said to me, look, if you want to do something with your business, you need to be involved in PMA. And I said, well, we are involved in PMA. We go to the meetings. He said, no, you need to be involved. You need to be one of the people that are helping set the pace and do things and get on the board of directors. And then eventually, if you ever do buy the business, then you need to be involved at the national level, and your goal should be the chairman of PMA. And I just kind of chuckled at him and said, Bernie, that's a long way off. He said, just work hard, it'll happen. And lo and behold, here we are 10, 12 years later, and I'm chairman of PMA, and we're involved nationally. We're involved locally. Our quality manager here, Katie Barry, is the district administrator for the Southern New England district. We typically have 5 or 6 employees at every meeting, and it's been just a great experience to be part of PMA and meet the people that we meet, just like yourself. And when you're at FabTech and Forming Our Future and any of the other shows, and you meet all these people, and even though we compete with a lot of members are competitive, you never feel that way in PMA. You always feel like everybody's helping each other. So that's kind of a quick analogy of how I got here. So it's kind of, like I said, I kind of fell into manufacturing. Didn't grow up thinking I was going to be some titan of industry. I grew up thinking I was going to be making furniture. And then, lo and behold, here I am in Cheshire, Connecticut, running a metal stamping plant.
Well, that's pretty amazing. And one thing I always say is that most of the people are committed in our industry. They're committed to the outcome. In much the way, I'm sure you've heard this joke before, is that what's comparing being committed to being involved to a breakfast and of ham and eggs or bacon and eggs, and basically the comparison is that the chicken was involved, but the pig was committed.
Very true. That is very true.
You're all in. You're all in, and I think that's
all in. Absolutely.
So when you think about technology and how it's impacting your company, what are some of the things, if you were kind of mentoring a new company getting involved in manufacturing, what areas would you suggest? Would it be more in the metal form EDU to kind of get more education, or would it be more in learning about different technologies? What would you say to somebody who's new and struggling to look forward? What would help them the most and be the most impactful?
Well, I just had a conversation very similar to this. So a friend of mine was actually buying a metal stamping company, and said, "Now, how do I get there? What should I be looking at?" And the first thing we did was to look. You are a member of PMA, but you need to be involved at a higher level, just like Bernie said to me. Get to know the people that are in the area, because those are your suppliers, and that's where most technology we look at. Sometimes the first glance we see of that is through a PMA seminar or an article in Metal Forming magazine, where we'll see a new technology. And I'll use Formic as an example. We looked at them, for automation and robotics, and how can we turn that into something that we can use here technology-wise. Metal Form EDU has been great from a training platform, because I think that's where you get your incoming workers to the next level. But from a technology standpoint, we're typically looking at what's coming across our email from some of the leading trade magazines, what's coming out in the Metal Forming magazine, and whether or not there's something that we can pick up. But also go to the trade shows, do the tabletops that you see at your local PMA, but go to FabTech. I walk FabTech every year, and I walk away and come back here with so many new ideas. It's just incredible, because that's where you're going to see the latest and greatest of everything. And we took some people a couple years ago that were new to the industry, had bought a metal stamping business, had no idea of how to run a metal stamping business, and within a few weeks of them purchasing, we were all together at FabTech walking the show floor and looking at technology and making introductions to people who are at the leading edge of that technology. And your suppliers, that's been a key for me through my time at PMA and through the boards, not just chairmanship, but through the boards, are who we meet that are good suppliers, and having the ability to pick up the telephone and say, and during a pandemic, and saying, "Hey, I need help," and know that they're going to listen to you, versus someone who's calling cold, that, you might call someone and say, "Look, we don't have any material. We can't help you." We haven't heard that conversation.
Right.
And I think that's, part of that membership of PMA and working that networking system. But you got to be committed. Like you said, you can't be on the outside looking in. You have to be inside.
Yeah, I think that if you view it as a partnership, that the organization is a partnership, you get a lot more out of it than you do as just somebody who's there to consume, meaning, okay, I'll go to a meeting, or I'll go, but you're not using it to its full potential. You're not networking, you're not engaging, you're not leveraging all those positive benefits that you get from being a member and actually using it. I think that's a difficult time that somebody has to make that decision, but you're right. I mean, that's part of the reason why we're here talking today, is because of that exact reason. Is the PMA I was talking to them about developing this platform because people were looking for a new way to consume information. So,
and I think, and we're looking at, we'll be in your neck of the woods soon for the stamping conference, the Metal Stamping Technology Conference. I mean, that's when you learn some really cool things that are coming down the pipeline. And, we're going to see a lot of great presentations. We're going to listen to a lot of good speakers, and we're also going to be networking and talking to people and learning things as we go. So, when I looked at the schedule and so, and looked at who's talking and what we're going to be talking about, I was pretty excited about it because I think those, between that and the exhibitors that are going to be there, it's going to be a great show, and there's going to be a lot of technology that we can talk about and bring back to the floor. And, and of course you pick up stuff from networking at night at dinner and other places that you're having conversations. I was at a meeting, and I don't even know if it was a PMA meeting, but we were talking about some of the things that we were working on, and the gentleman that was sitting at the table said, I have a project that just came through our plant last week that we can't do. It sounds like it's exactly what you do. And lo and behold, it was. But that was all of just being at the right place at the right time and talking about your business. And we were able to help each other. So I think those are the kind of intangibles that just kind of happen if you're out and about and participating in these events.
It's interesting that you mentioned that in the, I don't know how many years Link System had put on their safety, basically a metal form safety 3-day training session.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things is it isn't just the information you get there. It's the networking you have with other people that are sharing the same challenges that you are. It isn't just about safety. It's about, hey, what are you doing about this? What are you doing about your materials? Hey, who are you using?
Yeah. Right.
And those kinds of connections can change your business dramatically.
Yes, correct.
And I think people often overlook it, and we look at Zoom and we look at these online events as, oh, well, I can get the same thing. Well, you might be able to get the same content, but you don't get the same context.
Right. You do not. And
right.
That's so true. We looked at, we've been doing a lot of hybrid events at PMA where you can do either or. And I think that's, because sometimes you can't send everybody. Like the stamping conference, I'm the only one going from here.
Right.
Because we're just too busy. I would love to take my entire tool room to the stamping conference, but it's just not in the cards this year. But, I'll go down and take the information and bring it back to the company. But you're right. When you're in and you're in a meeting and you're sitting at a table with someone and talking about it, it's very similar to our networking groups at PMA. I don't want to sound like a PMA advertisement, but I kind of am a PMA advertisement this year. We have our networking groups. It's the same thing. Our networking group, the one that I'm a member of, is called the Press Club because we all own power presses, and they're like my board of directors at times. If I'm looking to buy a new piece of equipment, I'm talking to that group of people first. I'm just send out an email and say, hey guys, this is what I'm thinking. Yes or no? Do you have a good experience with this or bad? We kind of share best practices with each other when we're together. We tour each other's plants. We literally go on tour looking to find things that we can talk about to help that company. Like if we're at a member company and we're out on the floor and I see something that I think you could do better or unsafe, we're going to take a note and we're going to talk about it. We help each other at that level. So, that's unusual, probably unheard of in industry now to have that, but we do that. And I know there's other networking groups that do the same thing. So, but the ability to say, who would you buy that from and help each other is very important.
Yeah. And even to the point where I'm also involved with SME too. And when we take plant tours, same with the PMA tours, all of them, the way that when I was involved on the local level of asking people to give a tour was you're going to have 20 to 50 people that are engineers or high level people within different manufacturing sectors come through your plant, and they will put their eyes on your plant. And I always ask everybody before the tour is say, look around, tell me something they do well and something you think they can improve upon.
Yep.
So that when we get done, we can tell them, hey, here's some suggestions to improve your plant. So it's not just us taking. We're not just taking. We're not coming here, going to see your business, and then we walk out the door, and you're like, yeah, that was nice to have those people in, but so what? We want to give back.
Yeah, Dean, that is exactly what it's all about, because 9 times out of 10, people that are not involved with that, you might have to go out and hire a consultant to come in and tell you the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to give you, if they're not in your industry, you're not going to get what you're going to get from people who are in your industry that are walking in your plant, just like they walk in their own plant. It's an unbelievable value to have that ability to do that. And I think, you having been part of it and yourself being part of it, you realize the value of it. And, people talk to us about, when they come into our plant, and they always say how clean it is and how well it presents. And I go, well, you know what? I always tell my people, when you walk into our building, especially a new customer, potential new customer, we've got about 15 seconds to set the tone for the rest of that meeting, how they're going to feel. If they walk in and see, a clean entryway, and they walk out in the plant and they go, wow, then they know we care about what we do. And if we care about what we do, we're going to care about what we're doing for them. And I think, when you have that ability, and we always ask people when I have friends come in and say, hey, what was your first impression when you walked in the door? Because I want to know. I want to know from, and tell me God's honest truth. Don't sugarcoat it.
Right.
And it's important.
Tell me this, when you think about implementing a change within your company, what is some of the things that you feel like you have to do in order to make that stick?
Well, usually it's got to be, there has to be ownership at a high level. So it's typically, if I'm driving it, my son said to me the other day, he's like, I went out in the plant, we were running a machine, and the operator was doing a good job, and I went over to talk about some changes that we had implemented on the machine. And because I reinforced it, now that employee's become the champion of that. He's like, well, Doug came out and talked to me about it, so we're going to make this happen. Whereas, just hearing it from his supervisor, maybe he's going, okay, this will blow over in a couple of weeks. But if I'm out showing it, looking at it, talking about the technology, we've been spending a lot of money in automation and controls and automation, new controls for, older presses.
Mm-hmm.
Our company's 76 years old this year. So we've been doing a lot of upgrades and new technology and trying to get the younger people to embrace new controls. We looked at it, and I give my son credit for this, because he came to me and said, look, we can put in, a $25,000 servo feed and a new control system. And we've got a much better ability to have someone who's not, a 40-year or 30-year setup person be able to run this machine. Because now we have automation on our, we've got technology on our side and automation, whereas instead of coming out here and trying to set a feed manually, we can punch in the numbers and it's done. And that's the kind of buy-in. So when you teach a young person that, and they see that technology, and we're all standing out there watching it happen, they start to understand it when they see new guarding going in on almost all of our presses to upgrade our safeties and controls.
Right.
They see that commitment to spend the money, it's going to stick. And I use servo feeds as the number one example, because that's what we've been changing over from mechanical to all new electronic servo feeds. So it's been a whole new changeover for us.
I think to your point, when you start to reinforce the positive things that are occurring within the company, sometimes that's the thing that actually puts it over the top, because people see it and they engage with it every day. But when you give a voice to it, I think that really helps to resonate with everybody to say, yeah, that is new. And yeah, that is making a difference. And yeah, you can talk about numbers a lot of times in meetings where you're saying, look, we're up this much, we're doing this much more productivity in an hour, we have less downtime. But when you can actually point to something and say, wow, that really made a difference, then everybody else can kind of see, wow, that was impactful. That was something that made a difference for us. And especially when you can tie it into a person too, that everybody else, it's not just the piece of equipment. It's everybody else running that equipment and the people that are involved in it, that when you give them kind of some kudos, it also helps them to feel, yeah, this is someplace that I want to work. This isn't a job. This is my career. This is where I want to be, and I want to be impactful to a business. And with younger people now, that's what they want to hear. They want to know something's impactful. Do you find that obviously that's a significant change for you to go from 62-year-old average age to 32. Yeah.
Yeah.
How has that changed the way that you lead?
It changed everything. Everything. I mean, it's incredible, the changes. Probably the hardest part of my day is to sit in my office and hear some of the things that they're working on that I'm not involved in, that maybe I do differently, and to have to sit and wait it out. Sometimes I know, oh my God, this is gonna be hurt. It's gonna hurt, but it's got to be learned, and we've got to do it, and not get involved. And especially this past year when I've been traveling a lot for not only work but for PMA, and been out of the office a lot. And when I come back and jump into the middle of a project, it just makes a mess. So to listen to that, and it's just a different management style. Our plant manager is 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Our production manager is 26. Our sales manager is 26. They've grown up together, and it just kind of fell into place for us. And our quality manager is 35. That's a young group.
Mm-hmm.
And they work differently together. They think of things differently. And I had my son tell me the other day, I was thinking too old. You're thinking too old. I'm like, hold on a minute. And the first reaction was I was a little mad about that statement. But then after 5 seconds, I'm like, all right, he's right. I am.
Mm-hmm.
And we just, we changed our hours as an example. We were working 6 to 2:30. Well, 30-year-olds don't want to come to work at 6 in the morning. So we changed it to 7 to 3:30. And everybody loves it. Nobody's struggling to get here on time. And, that little change, and the ability to make that change. And we have some people working some semi-flexible hours. We would have never thought about doing that 10 years ago. This would have been, if you can't get here for 6 o'clock and every day at 6, and, we don't want you.
Right.
It's different now. We lead a little bit differently. We're not as structured sometimes in a meeting as I would like, but they get it done, and I know that the structure will come in time, but when you have that many young people at the same time, the structure is not always there. We just had I'll give you a good story about working with young people and how excited they can be. We had our local high school here. They brought in 12 teachers and guidance counselors for a tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I did the introductions and the safety talk, and then turned them over to 3 20-some-year-olds that went to school there, and all the teachers knew the kids. And to watch those boys light up as they walked through this plant and showed off what we're doing to people that had no intentions of them ever working in manufacturing. These people were geared towards, you're going to college.
Right.
And some of them did and some of them didn't. But for them to walk around and show them the technology that we're using in automation and some of the things that we're doing was just an incredible experience for me to just sit and watch. Because I think that's when they got the shine. It's like, all right, we're going to show these teachers what we've done with ourselves since we left the high school. And that was just a very rewarding experience, and it gave us so much momentum for the next probably 2 months. It was the talk of the whole plant, was talking about, how can we support the school, and, and working with the teachers, and the technology that we showed off, and where we were 5 years ago versus where we are now, and where are we going to be in 5 years. Because I tell them constantly, if you guys stick together, in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to be unstoppable. If you continue to go down this path and we continue to grow and improve what we're doing, and you all stay together, you're just going to be an unstoppable group of people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what our leadership strategy is, right or wrong. That's kind of what we've been banking on, is a younger crew, maybe a little leaner, because they work an ungodly amount of hours.
Right.
It's amazing to me. My phone will go off at 11 o'clock at night, and one or two of them are in here to restart a machine that nobody asks them to do it. They do it because they want to be involved, and they want to be part of making that shipment on time or getting it done early, and they might only be here for 10 minutes.
Right.
It's hard to find, it's building on itself, because when they talk about it, the next person wants to perform at a high level also.
Yes. They set the example and they set the tone for other people. And they also are the greatest recruitment tool you can have, is if you have young people that are satisfied in their career, and other people come in and you're hiring other people, that is the greatest tool you can have to show people that, yes, we are a forward-thinking company, and we are getting ready for the next generation. That is
because it doesn't pay for me to go out and hire 50 and 60-year-old people for my son and his crew.
Right.
He's eventually going to run the business or own the business. He's running it now. He's eventually going to own it, and it's much easier, because I grew up in my career, I was managing much older people, and it was hard. Right. And I know it's hard for him, because we still have some older people in the workforce, and it's hard to have a 26-year-old tell you what to do. So I get it, but I think it's a lot easier for him, and he's a lot more comfortable talking to his people closer to his age, and if we can find the right mix, we can make it work.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, we are just about out of time, sir. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Doug, for being here today. Any final thoughts?
Well, I think, as the spokesman for PMA, I would just encourage everyone to try and be involved at the highest level you can. And I think the reward back from membership in PMA speaks for itself. And you can speak to just about anyone who's on our board of directors, or who works in the staff, or who's involved locally, and they'll tell you that, the more involved you are, the more you get out of PMA. And we're excited. It's our 80th year this year. For my company, it's our 40th year of membership at PMA, so we were pretty excited about that. And Excellent. I would say, please get involved, and get involved locally. And probably the most important thing that we've done in the last 3 to 5 years is getting involved with our local high schools and technical schools to help train our workforce for the future, because we've got a lot of problems out there finding enough people, and I think we have an obligation to protect our industry. And to do that, we've got to be out talking our story, because 9 times out of 10, a teacher walks in here, or a guidance counselor walks in our plant, and I'm sure it happens at thousands of plants across the country, and they go, wow, this place is really clean. It's fully automated. It's just crazy. And whoever thought we made this here in Cheshire, Connecticut, or we made that in Cheshire, it's just an eye-opening experience. And I think that's how we're going to turn the tide and get back to where we need to be, because we've got the greatest opportunity to reshore a lot of business back to the United States, and we don't have enough people. It's hard for me to fathom that, but that's kind of where we're at right now. Right. So please get involved.
Well, I appreciate it, Doug. Thank you for being here today.
Dean, thank you. It's been a pleasure. glad we finally were able to make this happen.
Me too. Thank you. And thank you especially to the Precision Metalforming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation for all that they do for our industry. Much appreciated. Make it a great day.
Thank you. Take care.